also got some breaking news from the Fed. Steve Liesman is here and has been analyzing.
Yeah, hopefully Rick can stick around and give us some commentary on it. Stick around, Rick. So I want to tell you the Fed has done now its third repo operation.
So everything's fine, but we're going back in again?
Inject liquidity into the system. You know, that's a great point. I want to get to that. Let me give you the results here. Again, more submitted, 84 billion submitted, the Fed accepting 75, which is the size of the operation.
So oversubscribed once again.
Oversubscribed once again. The stop-out rate at 1.8%. What's the midpoint here of our new range? It's like it's closer to the bottom of the Fed's new range. That's the stop out. That's the lowest rate the Fed will accept, with a weighted average, Rick, of 1.84. Rick, I'm just taking superficially looking at this right now, and I'm seeing that there's still more demand out there for the Fed's liquidity than they're supplying, though the rate seems to be pretty well controlled. That said, I think, Rick, the Fed has the ability to control the rate that they're filling these bids at. So what do you make of this as to how much, I don't know, stoppage we have in the plumbing right now?
You know, I think Jim Bianco has said it best, and a lot of people have been weighing in on this. We've basically shrunk the amount of funds available in this regard, and a lot of that has to do with just the way things have changed, whether it's Dodd-Frank, a lot of issues since credit crisis. A very easy example. Just look at how many primary dealers we have today versus maybe 10 or 15 years ago. The fact that many entities don't make markets in certain securities. I think all these little details and the funds available, excess funds, everything has shrunk a bit. And I think that these issues will continue to crop up in a world where part of the business is shrunk. But indeed, if you look at the end users, people that have positions, traders, institutions, in many ways, they're more tightly packed and leveraged in their position. So I think these anomalies, although they aren't something we should get super nervous about, I think they're going to happen a little bit more frequently. And I think Jay Powell and company understand that.
So that's one of the things that's out there, Rick, is the idea whether or not the Fed needs a standing repo facility to provide this liquidity on a regular basis. The other issue is, I don't know if you heard my Jay Powell's answer to my question yesterday when I asked him, did we shrink the size of the balance sheet too much, reduce excess reserves? And he said it may be time to resume natural growth of the balance sheet. And I saw, Rick, yesterday when he said that, you had a brief decline in yields after it kind of stabilized.
But that's important for people who aren't listening to that. That means the Fed is getting easier by cutting rates, but it also could get easier by expanding the balance sheet again, too.
No, the balance sheet
It was a great question, Steve, but it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. It was a wonderful question. Everybody's all pulling their hair out about the inverted yield curve.
Could you just stop there?
No, not your question. The whole notion of his answer. Quantitative easing is backwards, okay? They want a steeper curve. We saw today in Europe a variety of economies, even in Japan, where they are really starting to sweat how much their banks have suffered due to negative yields and weird yield curves. And much of that is because of quantitative easing.
But hold on. We're talking about something a little bit different here, and I want to just explain to Becky, who I think is on to what we're talking about. Before QE, the balance sheet rose kind of naturally along with the size of the economy. When the Fed stopped doing QE, it held the balance sheet flat, and then it began reducing things. What Powell is saying now is, let's get back to olden times when we used to increase the size of the balance sheet.
And how big is the balance sheet right now? But how big is the balance sheet right now?
It's 3.7, 3.8
which
trillion.
is still a multiple of what it was.
Yeah, God, it was 800 billion before.
It's 3
I'm sorry.
But Rick is absolutely right because of the new Dodd-Frank rules. You have banks have to reserve against. Now, I also want to say
you can't pretend we're back in normal times.
No,
is what
not,
I'm saying. We didn't find a way to fix this or deal with the balance sheet.
Rick is right about something else that I've been following very closely. Peter Bookvar is on this. The Japanese are on this question. Is it time to think about orienting monetary policy to create steepness in the yield curve to make and keep your banks healthy? That is not something the Fed really targets, really likes to make policy on. But Rick is right. There is an emerging school of thought right now that says, you know what? And by the way, some people have been on this for quite a while. And I think the idea here is you create a steeper yield curve, you create healthier banks. Go ahead, Rick. You pick up on that.
No. I mean, I'm one of those people you're referencing. To me, the notion of having a prescription financial drug that cures what ails the globe, but if that cure means that 10, 15, 20 years down the road, when people look to retire, when they look to their pensions, when they go to their banks and try to have various financial transactions, these crazy yield curves and negative rates are going to create big potholes down the road. And we're starting to really see how scary that can be. And I tell you, the problem with these negative rates is they may have metastasized to the point where certain economies in Europe and especially Japan, I don't know how they're going to extricate themselves from this mousetrap. It seems like once the door closes, there's no way out.